Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My pleasure. To introduce our banquet speaker tonight, Shadoe S. from Belair, California. Is that right? Good enough. Thank you. So you want me to tell you what time it is? That'd be a good idea. Hi, my name is Shadoe, and I am an addict alcoholic. Thanks, Steve, for getting me here, and Debbie, and God, it's good. You know, we walked into the hotel, and I thought, these are my people. It's just the motorcycles outside, and the smokers, and the people drinking lots of coffee, and there's a guy with Red Bull, and went, these are my people. They're not my wife's people. It's like, it's coffee at 11 o'clock at night. I'd like to do a little exercise to lubricate the laughter glands. You know, there's something called laughter yoga. This is a real thing. And what it does, laughter releases endorphins in the brain, which is what we're all looking for anyway. And the body doesn't know if it's a real laugh or a fake laugh. So I would like everyone to just take a deep breath. Fake laugh. Ha 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 ha. I heard some real laughter. I'm not looking for real laughter. This is an exercise to lubricate the laughter glands. One more time, please. Ha 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 ha. I'd like to start with a parable. Mother Teresa dies, and she goes to heaven, and she ascends to the pearly gates. And there really are pearly gates. And they sit among the clouds, and puffy blue sky and puffy white clouds, and bluebirds flying overhead. And she walks up the steps, and the doors open, and there is God's office. And the door opens, and he's sitting behind a great big mahogany desk. And God jumps up and goes, Mother Teresa, we've been waiting for you. And he picks up a jeweled box from his desk, and he scoots around the desk, and he comes up to her, and he opens up the lid, and there's light. And he reaches in and pulls out the biggest halo you've ever seen. And he places it on her head, and there's a, oh, it was worth it. She's feeling, and a door opens on the right, and inside the door is a mighty auditorium with people all dressed in tuxedos and formal attire. Everybody's beautiful, and she walks into the auditorium, and everyone's got a halo, but she's got the biggest halo of all, and she's feeling really good about herself. And then she sees Princess Di across the room with the biggest halo anyone's ever seen. And she is livid. She turns back and kicks the door down to God's office. What the fuck? 40 years in Calcutta dealing with lepers, and this bitch has the biggest halo in the room? God says, well, that's not a halo, that's a steering wheel. True story. And the moral of that story is that if you're looking for rewards for your good deeds, you may be in for a surprise. You know, you can fall from a plane or get a divorce, be riddled with pain or get kicked by a horse, be down in the dumps. You can have an attack, but no matter what happens, you've got to bounce back. Ricochet. I'm a black belt in the art of ricochet. Let me tell you a little story. I'm going to start at a different place. Let's jump into the middle. When I turned 30, I was going to celebrate by going back to Tucson, where it all began, where I took my first drug. And I drove there. You know, that morning, it was in Mission Bay, California. I jumped in the ocean at 7 a.m., got in the car, drove to Tucson. And when I got to Tucson, there was a Greyhound bus waiting for me with all my friends from Tucson and people I didn't know, and a couple of drug dealers and an old friend of mine, a big Norwegian, who, as I stepped on the bus, handed me a hit of LSD and said, "Have a good trip." And on the bus, there were 2 kegs of margaritas. There were 2 ounces of cocaine. There was all kinds of wonderful Maui Wowie and smoke. And a sober bus driver who drove us to Nogales. Now, we partied all the way to Nogales, got out of the bus, walked across the border into a, that was called the Cavern or the Caves or something like that. It was a restaurant built into the cliffs. And you go into the labyrinth within, and that's where, you know, all the restaurant and the nightclub was. And everybody partied, and there was this rhythmic band, and they were like, and while I'm peeking, all these Mexican waiters came through the crowd with sparklers. And they hand me a sparkler. What could I do? I grabbed a sparkler and I partied. Later that night, we got back on the bus and partied back to Tucson. Then we went to one of the dealers' houses and we played Monopoly. Now, it was my 30th birthday, so it was very important for me to win. And we played through the night, and little by little, everybody, one dropped out after another, and then finally, at 8 in the morning, I won. We went to breakfast. Then my next best idea was to have another hit of LSD. This is where a good time took a startling turn for the worse. And as you all know, one is not enough. Well, it lasted about 1,000 years. Terror, paranoia, wrapped on the floor, you know, just in terror. Now, you would think that this would make any reasonable person go, I've got to stop this kind of behavior. But let me go back. I don't have any reason or anyone to blame for being this way. My parents didn't drink, smoke, use drugs, curse, or fight in front of the kids. I grew up in Jamestown, North Dakota, a little town on the prairie. My parents owned clothing stores and toy stores and go-kart tracks and fireworks stands on the 4th of July. We had lake homes and speedboats and water skiing, and no one in my family drank. So I didn't have it. My dad went through World War II saying, what do you want to drink for? Makes you loud and stupid. So he didn't. So he had the toy store, so when they had parties at our house, there was great laughter that came from downstairs as my dad would orchestrate these wonderful games where people would win big pandas and toys and things. It was fantastic. People had a great time. So it never occurred to me to drink until I was a senior in high school. And at the end of football season, the guys all decided we'd get together and celebrate. And I had my first drink of anything, which was a half pint of orange vodka. And it burned as it went down, and I went, oh, that's different. Within the hour, I began to projectile vomit. And I threw up for hours. I threw up parts of my stomach that came before I was born. I went, why do you like this? This is dumb. I hate this feeling. And I was never going to drink again. However, I was accepted at Art Center School and at San Diego State to go to college. And I came out here and discovered that everyone in California is cool. And they all knew that I wasn't. So I was terrified, and I went, I never mentioned coming out here again. So I went to the University of North Dakota, and because I needed a family, joined a fraternity. It was kind of an Animal House fraternity. So we had big parties, and I would drink at the parties to fit in. But it never occurred to me to drink any other time. Didn't really like alcohol. It was just like what you did at big parties. In my 4th year of college, I moved to Tucson, to the University of Arizona, and to work. And in my 5th year of college, guy said to me, you know, you got to try weed. I mean, you'd be great. I mean, it's a plant. It's not like it leads to heroin. So he set it up, and we were there was an apartment with a $5,000 sound system. Somebody had a lot of money. And blacklight posters and a big hookah that sat in the middle of the floor, and it was about 4 feet tall with tubes that went to all the people in the room, and they were all, ready. So I just inhaled on this tube, blip, 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 blip. And all of a sudden, the ceiling expanded. And there was music moving in arcs on the left and on the right. And I could see the music and move with the music, and it had colors. And I could see and understand for the first time. And I went, now I understand what you've been trying to tell me all along. It's like trying to explain the color blue to a blind man. It's like trying to explain the ocean to somebody who's never seen water. It's experiential. I am so thirsty. And that night I bought my first ounce. Within a month I bought my first pound. Then I moved to Boston. In Boston, we smoked every day. We shared our vibrations. We laughed for no reason at things that weren't funny. And we listened to music, and music was good. And a guy said, you want to try some acid? What's acid? It's like grass, but more intense, lasts longer. Okay. So my first trip was double parked on Beacon Hill. And I'm sitting in this little car in the driver's seat with my hands on the steering wheel. My friends have gotten out to go get donuts. And all of a sudden, it comes on, and it goes, I don't know who I am, my hands. My friends are skipping down the street in slow motion, eating their donuts. Get in the car. Get in the goddamn car. What is this? What did you... Now, you would think that a really terrifying experience would make any sane person go, I am never doing that again. But no. I moved to Los Angeles within the year. Now, by this time, we smoked every day, and we did psychedelics on the weekends for perspective. No, my story, this is all true. My story is like a Marvel comic. It's hilarious in a really dark and horrifying way. A one-armed man worked for me, and the one-armed man said to me one day, you know, you got a lot of responsibilities. You've got a lot to look out for, and maybe you should see my doctor, Dr. Lax. Dr. Lax weighed 350 pounds, and he had a little office at La Cienega and Wilshire, and he wrote his prescriptions on his stomach. Now, I'd been seeing him for a while, and things were going well. And I went in to see him. I'd see him every month, and I'd go in and say, Dr. Lax, things have been going really well. Sometimes I have to stay through the night. Sometimes I have to, keep really busy, and I have to, a lot of writing and a lot of things and people I'm responsible for. And he said, well, you had Dexedrine last month. How about Black Beauties? It'd be good. Dr. Lax, things have been going really well since I've been seeing you, and everything is really, really fine, and I've got a really good career, and things are going really fine, but I'm having a little trouble sleeping. Well, you had Quaaludes last month. How about Tuinol? Fair enough. He would sell me amyl nitrate from behind his desk, a dozen at a time. Cash. 5 years go by. Saw him every month for 5 years. One day, I had something unexpected happen. I had a recording studio production company at Sunset in Doheny, and one day, under a brilliantly subtle combination of a wide variety of intoxicants, I had a panic attack. Now, those of you who know a bad acid trip know, well, I know it's because of the acid. I've got to ride it through. When you're having a panic attack, there's only two options. Either you're going to die, or you're going to be in a padded room in a mental hospital for the rest of your life. And there are no other options. What your brain does is tell you every terrifying thing that could possibly happen, and you have no control of it, and you lie on the floor, balled up, and you breathe into a paper bag going, oh, God, help me. Oh, God, help me. Oh, please make this stop. Now, my friends take me to see Dr. Lax, who is horrified that I would come see him at a time like this. He kept me in his office for several hours, and then he cut me off. Now, I did what any reasonable drug addict would do. I turned to the streets. Crystal meth seemed like a good idea. Cheap, kind of kept me going. You could go through the night, get a lot done. An awful lot done. A lot of times, you get it out. Now, I had this other experience on a peak psychedelic experience, and it was an out-of-body vision. And I thought, I've got to find my way here without drugs. So I started studying everything I could, quantum physics and comparative religion and out-of-body experiences and the occult and meditation. Meditation seemed like a good idea to me. So I decided I would commit. And I stopped everything. I stopped drinking, I stopped using all drugs, and I meditated. And a year went by, and things got better. Then, a producer came into my studio one day to do a new movie campaign, and he laid down an ounce of cocaine. And it was all pearly and sparkly. And he said, have as little or as much as you want. It's just for the work. I said, I don't do that anymore, but thank you. Thank you. He goes, yup. You? Really? Good for you. Good for you. How'd you do that? Well, I meditate. Ah, great. You don't mind if I have some, do you? I mean, it's just for the work. Why not help yourself? So, it was a long night. After a while, I started thinking, I have been really good. I'm very, very strong. It's very clear. And clearly, I can pick it up or put it down, stop anytime I want. And it's going to be a long night, and we've got a lot of work to do. So what would a little needle line hurt? So I carved one out. And then I, into one nostril. And then I had two because you have two nostrils. Then I had two more to balance the hemispheres of my brain. Now, having attained a higher state of awareness, working through the night and solving a lot of the world's problems all at the same time. We work through the night, and we work through the next day, and we work through the next night, and the next day. By the end of the week, I bought my own ounce. Then I built it into my budgets. And it was me and the team. We shared our vibrations. It was just for the work. And then I started thinking, they should really get their own. What am I, Dad? And I started holding some back, hiding it in the ceiling. I went home one night, and we had a house in Malibu Canyon, and it was very quiet. And I went home one night at midnight, and I parked the car, and then I went to the bathroom for a couple of hours. And when I came out, I went to the bedroom, and I heard something, and maybe some of you have experienced this. Right outside the window, it sounded just like this. I couldn't see anything. but I wasn't sure. So I put sheets over the windows and the doors. Then I realized you can see silhouettes through sheets. So I put quilts over the sheets, over the windows and the doors. Then I realized you can see around the cracks around quilts. So I put nails at 1-inch intervals around the quilts. Now I sat there. I had gained 50 pounds. Through large amounts of coke and crystal meth, I gained 50 pounds. Here's why. I needed something to take off the edge. Reasonable. And it started with a beer now and then. Don't really like beer, but pretty soon it was a case a day. Then one day I realized I've gained a lot of weight. I'm also eating cheeseburgers and eating pizzas and French fries and anything anyone puts in front of me because I can't stop anything ever. I've got to take some weight off. So I cut out the beer cold turkey. And my replacement was a tumbler filled with ice, 1 cap of Canadian Club, and the rest sparkling water for a delightful spritzer. This would balance my blood sugar and take the edge off of my highly accelerated state. Then it was 2 caps, and then it was a glug, and then it was mostly Canadian Club and a little water. And I had this with me day and night. I also got into guns, because you can never be too careful. And I had a short barrel 12-gauge shotgun, double-aught buck. You don't have to aim, you just point and pull. I also had a Beretta and a .45 and a mercenary gun, which is a gun that's like a Derringer, sits in your wallet for all those times when you're walking down the street and somebody says, "Give me your wallet." I take him out. The truth is that I was terrified all the time. I really didn't know if someone was trying to kill me. And I hired armed bodyguards at my house for a period of time because I didn't know. And then I'd go in the bathroom and lock the door. But during this night, when I heard the whispers outside the window, I thought either I've gone insane or there's someone out there. I've got to go confront my destiny. So I took my 12-gauge and I stalked outside the door. And I squatted down beneath the window and I waited. After about 10 minutes, I realized I had gone insane. And at that moment, I heard a rustle in the bush. And I jumped up screaming, "Now you die!" And I ran through the bush with my 12-gauge, looking left and right. And they got away. So I went back to the bathroom to celebrate. Now, going back to the bathroom means you bolt the door, then you put a knife through the frame into the door just to be sure, put a towel beneath the door, through the window, you let the bathtub run. Now I'm safe to have another hit. So I have another drink, and then I have another hit. And this is an attractive sight. A 50-pound, overweight, toxin-filled, bloated, stinking man, eyes rolled back, tongue out, head hitting on the floor. And when I came to, I thought, well, that was a good hit. I should take a breather. Now, about this time, I went to my real doctor, and he gave me, a physical, and he said, well, if you're lucky, you're going to die. Chances are you're not going to get that lucky. You're going to have a heart attack or a stroke any minute. Your cholesterol is high, your blood sugar is high, your blood pressure is high, you're a time bomb, you're full of toxins I can't even identify. And why don't you go to AA? Well, I knew I had a problem, but I'm not that bad. Jesus. And the truth is that I was humiliated. I was ashamed of myself. I was so beaten up. And my parents, I mean, how do I account for this? You know, I don't even know how to answer for it. Why am I like this? Why? I don't know. Every day I prayed, God, help me. I don't know how to stop. It was dark. And I didn't, because I couldn't bear the thought of coming and sitting in a meeting with other people. I was on television at the time. They were all going to know, like they didn't know. But I didn't stop, and I had many more convulsions. And I finally had an overdose in my studio many months later.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And my friends found me, and they called my family in the middle of the night. And my family just talked to me, and they said, we had no idea. They don't know what to say. You know, maybe you should get help. You know, and here's what I said. You know, I realize that I've got a little problem, and things have gotten carried away, and I think it's because I need a little R&R, need a little rest, relaxation, and take time off, maybe go to Hawaii, and do no drugs and no alcohol, and just relax and catch my breath and take up skydiving. And then I'll go up, you know, to 14,000 feet and leap out of the plane, and the rush of plunging toward the ground will be so intense that I'll voluntarily want to give up drugs. And my mother said, maybe you should go to Betty Ford. So I went to Betty Ford, and there was no room in the inn. They said, come back in a couple of weeks. I said, there's no couple of weeks. I'm not coming back in a couple of weeks. They said, well, let us make some calls. And they ended up calling Scripps in La Jolla. I don't know that it's there anymore, but it was, at the time, quite a good rehab. And I drive over the hill, and I'm certain this is the end of my life. I will never have fun again. I will never be creative again. This is the worst day of my life. And I sat outside that rehab, and I didn't want to go in. And I thought, this is like a mental hospital. I'm going into a mental hospital, and my life is over. All I want to do is to be enthused and inspired all the time. Is that too much to ask? So finally I go in and I talk to the counselor. I end up talking to him for 2 hours. And finally he says, you know, this is not a mental hospital. It's not like we lock you up. It's like you can't get out. Give it a day. See what it's like. See, try something. Clearly what you're doing isn't working. Okay. So I go in and I check into my room and I meet my roommate, who was just about to leave because this clearly wasn't going to work for him either. And we started talking and he made me laugh. And that's what it took. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll give it a day. And the next day we kept talking and we'd smoke cigarettes and blow it out the window and write poetry and do drawings we'd put on the walls and laugh, and I'll give it another day. We became known as the Hideous Twins. We were vocal. We had a lot of opinions because, you see, they kept talking about alcohol. And we really believed that we were the elite of the mentally ill. We were drug addicts. And they weren't talking about drugs. They were talking about steps or something that had nothing to do with drugs or alcohol, either one. Like, what are you talking about? So we were voted least likely to succeed. 2 weeks in, a counselor came to us and he said, let me sit down with you guys. Listen, you got a lot of opinions. You have a lot of things to say. You might try listening. He said, look, this is all you got. This is the only thing that's ever worked for anybody, and it doesn't work for everybody, because you got to want it. So you better know what you want. You better know why it seems to work for some people, and give it a shot, because clearly it's not working for you the way you've been living. And he looked at me and he said, and you've got a lot of anger issues. If I were you, I would get a sense of humor. You better have a sense of humor about who you are, what you've done, where you've been, and where you're going, or you're in for a rough ride, because life gets really tricky. And for me, that little moment was a ping that went off in my head, and I started meditating again the next morning. 2 weeks later, we got out of rehab, and I was terrified. I was terrified of the idea of going back to that old way of life, of always being afraid, of always being paranoid, of always wondering how I'm going to get the next. Whether it's a drink or a drug or both, I just always needed something, and I don't want to live that way anymore. I made it to Del Mar from La Jolla. Checked into a motel, got through the night, came back to L.A., where all the drug dealers were, where all the liquor stores were, and I go, well, they have to go to these meetings. All right, Jesus, God. So I went to the meetings, and I sat in the back, and I didn't participate, and all I heard at the beginning was cocaine, coke. But little by little, I started hearing like little increments of stories that I could kind of identify with. And someone said along the way, you got to get a sponsor. I've since found out that a sponsor comes from the conjunction of spawn, meaning to swim upstream to spread your seed, and seer, to be a knower of all things. Or in other languages, a ventriloquist dummy for the voice of God. Now, I asked this guy, I say, a sponsor? He goes, what? He goes, oh, sponsor, sure. Call me every day. So I called him every day, and I would say, things are going well. Thank you. I'm just checking in. It's not going to go anywhere. This doesn't mean anything. I'm just checking in. Every day I would call him, every day. And life went on, and life started getting better for me really quick. I went on a doctor-supervised fast to lose all this weight. And so I stopped eating everything. It was just like liquids. And so, I would exercise in the morning and exercise at night. I started taking martial arts. I started doing yoga, all of these things to keep this active mind, giving it a direction. And then I discovered bubble gum. And it started really simple. Just a double bubble. And I would have a double bubble now and then. And then I would buy, packets of Double Bubble. And then I discovered Bubblicious. Now, then I would buy Double Bubble and Bubblicious, because I need something to chew. You understand. Now, my secretary at the time discovered the fact that I really liked gum. So she bought me a fishbowl and would buy me all this gum and take it out of the packet, so I have a handy thing. I just take off the wrapper. Then I discovered Hubba Bubble. Hubba Bubble watermelon brought me to my knees. One day, I was chewing and my jaws hurt. And I looked at my teeth, and they were covered with sugar. And I thought,
to obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I can't do anything right. I can't do anything regular. I can't even chew gum. So I am 29 years and 6 months off of Hubba Bubble. Thank you. Things were going well, and I was calling my sponsor every day. And then one day I was driving down the street, and all of a sudden, everything changed. Everything was going great, but everything changed, and it was like this. How you doing? There's a little voice in my head. How you doing? Not so good, huh? Yeah, I know. You've been working really hard. You've been really good. And how are those meetings going for you? You really enjoying it? How's that all that spirituality? Is it working out for you? You know, you really deserve a break. You deserve a break this weekend. You deserve a break right now, and I know just the person to call. You know, and I'm driving down the street, and I went, and I'm crying. You know, I don't know what to do. But they told me to go to a meeting. I don't know any meetings, or write, and I don't know how to write. And I call someone. I don't know how to call someone. Bing! Into my head comes the sponsor's number, because I called him every day. And I call him, and he's there. And he says, come on over. So I go over there, and he goes, what's going on? Oh, no, look at my goddamn show. He goes, I know. And I did this, and I went through my rant, and it went away. And by the time I left, he says, you doing okay? And I went, yeah, I'm back. And I understood what they've been telling me all along was how this works, that we're not wired like other people. We actually think differently. We have really loud voices. We're wound tight. We're not like them. And being among people that are wired like me, that person can get me through that moment, and I might get somebody else through that moment. That's brilliant. What else do I have to do? The steps. Now, I put off doing the steps for a very long time. But you know, it hurts. It's difficult. Life gets really challenging. And I had to break it down. What are the steps all about? What does all this mean? And then it occurred to me one day that it's the embodiment of 3 ideas. And the first idea, this is really complicated, so listen carefully. The first idea is, left to myself, I make inelegant choices. Maybe, perhaps, there's something bigger than me that I can turn to. Now we get to that quandary, that God problem. So I have to wrestle with this a little bit. God, you know, all of the dogma and the mythology of religions and the way we're taught in Sunday school, and we get this idea of the guy on the throne and the, you know, throwing lightning bolts and all of this stuff, and they go, yeah, right, please. Then I realized that to be an atheist, first of all, I have to be smug. To be an atheist, you have to be able to reduce everything to 2 simple quotes. One is, oh, all you sad people and your little imaginary friend. Or, it's the purposeful suspension of critical thinking. That gives the atheist free rein to not have to think about it anymore at all, and completely overlook the fact that there were countless people, human beings, over all time who've spent their entire lives studying, meditating, and praying. You think they might know something you don't? So then I started looking at everything that's observable in creation, and that is that everything is in order. Everything from the spider webs to the ducks flying south for the winter, the change of the seasons, the rotation of the earth, the galaxies all in perfect precision, galaxies within galaxies, an incomprehensible universe, and it's all in order. Everything is measurable. It's in order. So then I discovered a physicist in the UK who tried to calculate the possibility of an ordered universe coming out of chaos. And he came up with a number that he explained this way. You would have to generate 1,000,000 zeros a second times 1,000,000 times the age of the universe to 1. That's just to write it down. Now, I'm thinking these are pretty good odds. So maybe there is a grand design, maybe there is a creative order to the universe that is incomprehensible that I don't see because I'm just here on the surface. And now the Hindus say that there is the physical universe, which is this vibration, and then there is the astral universe, which is a higher vibration, and the causal universe before God. I'm going to accept that. Now I turn to that something, and you can make up your own. You know, you can use the Monty Python God if you want. Oh, Lord, oh, you are so huge. We're all really impressed down here, I can tell you. Or you can call him Phil. Dear Phil, what do I do? It's that acknowledgement that maybe perhaps there's a creative order beyond everything that you just don't know. What do I do? And then in surrendering it, you do the next best indicated thing. So that's the first idea. The second idea is that I carry around this dilemma. I have these secrets, resentments, humiliation, shame, doubt. All this stuff sits in, they call it the subconscious, but it sits in your body like little welts. You know, like when you have a muscle spasm and it's got a knot in it and you have to get in there with your elbow. Well, it kind of sits there like that, and you're not aware of it. It's sort of like mold in a house. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you don't know it's there, but it's growing. And all this stuff sits there and waits. And it waits until you're weak. And that one moment you're weak, it goes, how you doing? You know why this isn't working out? Because you suck. You know why you suck? Let me give you a list. Remember that little secret that you got? Remember that? Remember Jerry in accounting and that Dick and what he did? And then these resentments sit there and they fester and they become an all-encompassing thing that's all you can think about is that thing that Jerry did. And it takes you down because it builds a story. You know, it builds a story. It's like this negative thought leads to more story, and pretty soon you're believing the story and you're going with it. And it's making you small and weak and full of doubt, and you just need a break. You just need a break. Maybe this weekend. Maybe get back on the track. It's really simple. Just get back on the track. Oh, it's big. Just get on a break. So you end up writing this stuff down, and it's just genius the way they design this thing. You write it down. It gets out of the cloud of your head and out of the subconscious and out of the wherever it's stored in your body, and it goes, and then I did, and oh, Jesus, God, I can't. And then you start thinking of other things that you'd entirely forgotten about, and pretty soon you're done. It comes out like mental diarrhea, you know, it just like gushes onto the page. But now you've got a concrete thing. You've got, this is stuff. This is my stuff. And you go and you share that with your sponsor. And that was really humiliating, you know, for those of you who have done it. So I read this thing to him, and I get done, and I'm like, he goes, that's it? I should tell you some of my story. God, good work. And all that shame and all those secrets and everything went, just like went away. It was astonishing. And then there's the third idea, and the third idea is I did stuff to other people. And so every time I see Steve, I know what I did, and I avoid him. I don't want to hear his name. Somebody brings up in conversation, oh, that dick. Because I know what I did. I know what I did to Steve, and I know what I did to Mary, and I know what I did to these other people. And I just carry this stuff around. You know, it just sits there, and it waits for you, and it goes, how you doing? So if you don't deal with it, you're in for a rough ride. So you deal with it. You write it down, and then you go to the person, you say, look, here's what I did. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I've been out of my mind, and I know what I did to you, and I'm sorry, and I want to make it up to you, and I apologize. And every time I did it, they went, wow, I'm so impressed. Thank you. And all that stuff just went away. It was like extraordinary. And that's just how I don't want to be in pain. You want to be in pain? Fine. Don't do it. You want to be out of pain? You have to do the steps. The rest is at 10, 11, and 12. 10 is about doing it daily, you know, just staying on top of it. I lose it today, I lose my temper, and I deal with it right away, and then it doesn't add up, and it doesn't sit there, and it doesn't stick. Then there's 11, which is prayer and meditation. It doesn't say prayer. It says prayer and meditation. It's very specific. Now, obviously, I'm a big believer in meditation. I think it's the only important thing that I've ever discovered in my life. But I'll tell you why I think that. Meditation is not making your mind quiet. It is not trying to make your mind calm down. It's about concentration. It's about laser-like focus on one thing, just like you do when you're trying to learn a new program, a new math skill, or an art of any kind. You put all of your attention on that. And what you put your attention on is your breath. And all meditation is based on this simple idea. One thought, one focus. You watch the breath go in, and you watch the breath go out. You just sit upright in your chair and put your hands down. You close your eyes. It's really simple. The basic meditation technique is really simple. You just breathe in, hold it a moment, and breathe out. You can also add a lotus flower in your chest. And as you breathe in, and it opens, and as you breathe out, it closes. And that's all. And here's what will happen if you try it tonight, and you probably won't. But if you do, here's what will happen. You'll sit there and you go, this doesn't work for me. This might work for him. This doesn't work for me. I've got to call. I've got to make those calls. I've got emails to get. I've got this thing to plans for tomorrow, and I've got to lay out the clothes that I'm supposed to wear tomorrow. I've got a big party at the end of the week. And you realize it's your mind chattering. And you don't try and stop it. You just put all of your attention back on the breath, breathing in, breathing out. And if you persist, what happens is this. Your body calms down. Your heart slows down. Your body slows down. And you get really quiet like you are in a deep sleep, except the you that isn't the body, the awareness, the spirit, the I am, the witness, gets to perceive itself. That part inside gets to see it without all of the distractions of the chattering of the mind and the body twitching and all of the things you have to do and the pains and everything you go through. And what you realize then is that that's infinite within. You can go infinitely within, and the more you do it, it's cumulative. The more you do it, the better you get. Now, why else would you want to meditate? Because it's concentration. And the more you learn to concentrate, the better you get at everything. How fast you learn other things in life, how you solve problems, how you deal with others, your self-awareness, your self-confidence, everything is affected by your ability to concentrate. So why not do meditation? Well, here's some more. I interviewed this Himalayan yogi. A guy actually meditates in the caves in the Himalayas. This is impressive to me. And I say to him, explain to me about God. And he said, for thousands of years, people have tried to prove the existence of God, and they have failed. For thousands of years, people have tried to disprove the existence of God, and they too have failed. Why? Because God is not for proof, disproof, or intellectual discourse. It is purely a personal experience. You must experience it for yourself, and the only way to experience it is through meditation, by quieting the body so that you can see within. Now, there's another quote that I think you'll like, and this one comes from another Indian master named Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna said, you have to be mad with love in order to realize God. And once you attain the ecstatic love of God, every pore in the body, even the roots of every hair, become like so many sexual organs. And in every pore, you enjoy pure communication with the Supreme Universal Self. Every pore and the root of every hair becomes like a sex organ. This is worth working for. I'm committed. And step 12 is about sharing. It isn't, it can be, helping another alcoholic, or it can be just being of service, being present, being there for someone, because you don't have to look very far to see that the world is really a mess and people are suffering a lot worse than you. No matter what your condition is, there's people that are worse off than you. And all you have to do is be there and be conscious of it and give someone a smile or hello or how are you, or listen to them. You might be what someone is praying for at that moment. People get beat up by life. Life is difficult. And in doing that, you're out of yourself. And when you're out of yourself, you're not making the list of all the things that are wrong. Because here's what we're up against. The brain is trying to kill us. Here's how it works. There's something called cognitive bias. The brain tends to believe what it's predisposed to believe. Negativity bias. The brain gives more weight to negative information than positive information. There is the bandwagon effect, and those of us in these rooms know the bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect is that your brain tends to believe what other people around you believe. So if you're around alcoholics and drug addicts, where's your head? If you're around sober people, where's your head? Then there's the amygdala, the storehouse of phobias and fears. And the amygdala is on the lookout for what's wrong. What's that? You know, I think it developed out of our fear of saber-toothed tigers. It's like, oh, not a saber-toothed tiger. Now we get into an area where your mind can't decide what is real and what isn't real and what's a real danger. Being struck by lightning? Real? Not real. Some little problem of the day? How big is it? So what do we have to do? We have to overcome this. Now, I have come to believe in something called pronoia. Pronoia was invented by the hippie movement. And the pronoia is the opposite of paranoia. Pronoia assumes this, that the entire universe is conspiring to shower me with blessings every minute. It's a good one. And there's a whole lot of stuff you can look up online about pronoia. It's real fun. And I believe that there are things that you have to do in order to be optimistic. I think that it's something that you have to work at, because there's just no hope unless you're optimistic, because your mind is looking for what's wrong all the time. And then it makes a list, and it beats us up, and it takes us out. So what has happened to me? In my first year of sobriety, everything changed. 9 months being sober, and I was in my studio where I'd had the overdoses and everything else, and a guy that worked for me in the music studio brought in this woman that he met at the bank. She had lived 2 blocks away for the last 5 years. Her. And I walked into the room and it was like, damn. Now I'm trying to be cool. So what are you playing her? And she got uncomfortable and left. I said, who was that? Oh, this is this model I met at the bank. Does she sing? Yeah, I think so. Get her back. So that night she comes back. We were doing this thing I was doing called Shadow Vision. It was on HBO, and it was a piece of music called "Oh, You Perspire." Now, the very first thing we ever did together was to sing "Oh, you perspire, yeah, you perspire." She go, and we did this over and over and over again. It was very, very complicated. We had to get the harmonies right. You know, it was really hilarious and really sexy, and we haven't been apart since. Now, a year later, we got married, and in the next year, our daughter Amber was born. Stunningly, breathtakingly beautiful. Too good to be true. And like 4 or 5 years later, China came along. Stunningly beautiful. Too good to be true. And my career blossomed and things happened, and I just kept going to meetings, and things just were remarkable. And then there was a phase where they weren't remarkable. And then there are things like everybody has in life. There are challenges and things that make you grow and things that make you learn new things and things that test you. And there were 10,000 really good reasons to drink. And I didn't, because I never heard a good story. Now, in 30 years, I've never heard one, not one, in 30 years, story of, yeah, I was around that program for a while. Yes, yeah, worst years of my life. I was there for a couple of years. Oh, man, oh my God, going to those meetings. No, I started drinking regular, and boy, I've never had a better job. I've never had a better relationship. my wife, my kids. You know, we take time off to go skiing in Aspen and snorkeling on Java. You never hear that. What you do hear is this is what happened. A year and a half into my being sober, I got sober with this guy. He's young, good-looking guy, very sharp. And I hadn't seen him around for a while. And one day I was walking down the street on Melrose, and I saw this carcass walking toward me that looked familiar. And I walked up to him and I said, "Man, Billy, how you doing? Is he okay?" He said, you know, what happened is I got it. You know, I got how this program works. You know, once you understand it, you don't need it anymore, right? And so I stopped going to meetings, and then I went to church, and I participated in communion. And, you know, I had the wine, and it was a little shot, and it didn't affect me a bit. So a week later, there was a friend was getting promoted at a law firm, and everybody's having a shot, and I had a shot with him, and it didn't affect me a bit. Then there was another reason to celebrate a few days later, and then I was drinking every day, and then I was drinking a lot, and then I started getting the cocaine again. Then I started shooting the cocaine, and then I got gout, and my ankles swelled up, and they were purple and black, and my best idea was to shoot the cocaine into the gout. That's a bad idea. Billy's no longer alive. I am. And I have so much to be grateful for. I mean, astonishing. We are so blessed. We get this opportunity to change everything. Everything. And we don't even know where it's going. All we know is that it gets better because they told me it did. And all I have to do is stay close and do a few simple things. So there's a couple of things that happened along the way. On my 5th birthday, I went back to San Diego, and my friend had set something up for us. Amber was with us at that time. And he said, "I've got something for you at sunset. And I want you to go down to Mission Bay." Ironic, Mission Bay. And I went down to Mission Bay, and there was a gondola with an actual Italian. And in it was cheese and fruit and soft drinks, sodas. And we floated out onto the bay listening to Italian operas. It was magical and very cinematic. And for an hour and a half, we floated quietly. It was a perfect day, blue sky, puffy clouds, seagulls soaring. And this is all true, just as the sun is setting in the distance and the rays are going like this, Julio Iglesias came on. I always hated Julio Iglesias. Now this time, Amber's asleep under one arm, Beverly's with my other arm, and tears rolled down my face because I saw myself on the bathroom floor in convulsions, and I thought, I almost missed this. But that was one. There have been dozens and dozens. This last year alone, some magical things happened. I was invited to do an Oprah Winfrey Where Are They Now story, and they talked about my art. And you can see this, shadowart.com. I do this art, and I did it for me, and I do this series called The Transdimensional Symbolism of Rocky Waters. And rocky waters is a metaphor for difficult times. And in the first piece, it says, just when he thought he was winning the game, fate took a turn down a blind alley. And suddenly he was forced to confront fear, doubt, uncertainty, and change. And each piece is about a different part of the descent until there is surrender and rising up. And so I tell this stuff on television, and a guy at the best art gallery on the West Coast, Gallery Michael on Rodeo, says, I want to see your art. And he comes over and they see it and they go, we've got to do a show. So on November 1st, they put on a big show with all my art, with Salvador Dali and Picasso and Chagall and me. I'm going, how did this happen? This is like insane. And a few weeks later, my daughter Amber got married. And I'm walking down the aisle with her, and it's perfect. It's perfect. Everybody's beautiful. It's like it was designed in a movie. And I'm walking down the aisle, and I get that shiver again. It's like, I almost missed this. Wow. Life is mysterious. You got to be brave. You got to stick close. You know, you get hope here. You get big time hope. And if you're new, you want to come around and hear the stories and get some power. There's real power here. There's real solutions. There's real things you can do that really do change your life. And if you have been around a long time and you're going through a difficult time, don't give up. If you don't give up, you just never know how good life might get. Thanks.
Thank you, Shadoe.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.